April is a special month for this channel. It's the 1-year anniversary of the first video, it's the month we first surpassed 1 million views, and it's also the month that I got to meet a lot of people in person that I know from this project at NgConf in Salt Lake City. This video marks episode 100, and for it we're going to do something a little bit different than normal. I'm going to spend some time answering questions that you've asked on Slack and YouTube that wouldn't normally fit into this channel's content. But before we get into that, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who supports this channel, either with a pro membership or just by simply liking and watching the videos. It's your feedback that really drives the direction of this content, and I'm really grateful for that. To show my appreciation, I'm going to provide 10 free t-shirts or gift cards to anybody that comments on this video with a suggestion about what they want to see next. Just leave a comment and I will randomly select the winners by the end of this week. Okay, so now let's jump into question number 1. How was NgConf? I've been to quite a few tech conferences in the past, and most of them are pretty boring. But I'd have to say NgConf stands out as being extremely well organized and engaging. If you ever get the chance to go, it's well worth the investment. But what I really want to share is my top 5 most exciting things happening in the Angular world. Number 1 by far for me is Angular Elements. This allows us to build Angular components and use them as custom elements in HTML without bootstrapping an entire Angular app. This opens up an entirely new paradigm for Angular development where we can focus on building components and then drop them into existing applications. For example, if you have a Ruby on Rails application, you can build an Angular component, provide a script, and then use that component in your Rails app. It's a total game changer for Angular developers. Number 2 is the new Ivy render engine. The first thing it's going to do is dramatically reduce bundle sizes with advanced tree shaking techniques. A compressed and minified Hello World app is only 2.7 kilobytes, which is extremely small. But if that's not enough, it's also going to dramatically improve debugging capabilities. If you've ever seen the expression is changed after it's been checked error, then you probably know that it's very frustrating to debug. But Ivy includes a much improved stack trace that will take you exactly to the point in the template where that error occurred. So very much looking forward to Ivy in version 6. I'm also looking forward to Rxjs version 6. If you're like me, your components probably have 20 different lines dedicated to Rxjs imports, and that's because there's hundreds of different import points in the library. But in version 6, there will only be 2 main import locations, which will dramatically reduce the number of lines of code it takes to use Rx in your Angular project. Now moving on to number 4 is the new VS Code live share mode, which was announced at NgConf. This feature allows multiple people to collaborate on a document in real time, similar to how Google Docs works. This means that you can pair program remotely on a shared document, which opens up the door for all kinds of cool stuff with education and just teamwork in general. The last thing I want to show you is a new feature from StackBlitz called Teleport. It will show you real-time changes happening to your app across all devices. So if you're building a PWA on your desktop and you want to see how it works on a mobile device, you can do that using Teleport. StackBlitz will give you a URL that you can load up on your iPhone, and then you can see the changes happening in real time, similar to how real-time features work in Firebase. That wraps up the top 5 for me, but make sure to watch all the talks on YouTube because there was so much great stuff that I just wasn't able to cover here. I want to switch gears to a question I get asked frequently, which is, how do you make your videos? The first thing I do is I write a bunch of code on my Ubuntu workspace and make sure that I have a solid working demo before doing anything else. From there, I have a special patented technique that I use for recording code snippets. What I do is I delete things in reverse order, then I click record on my camera, and then hit Ctrl-Z or undo to rebuild the function step by step. Once I have those recorded, I use Adobe Creative Cloud to produce the video, mostly Adobe Premiere, but also Adobe After Effects for certain animations. I create the videos on Windows, but I also have a Mac, which is equally effective at producing videos. The next question I want to address is, what is a Cordova plugin, which was asked by Hayden on our Slack channel. This is a great question because Cordova plugins basically feel like a black box, and we just kind of trust that they're doing what they're supposed to do. The underlying problem that Cordova plugins solve is that we want to use JavaScript to interact with SDKs that only understand Java, Objective-C, Swift, and Kotlin. So a Cordova plugin can be thought of as a bridge that allows us to use a JavaScript interface to write code that normally only runs in these other languages that native mobile apps understand. If you look at the source code for a plugin, you'll see that its code base is normally split between JavaScript and then Android and iOS code. You'll generally see a file for iOS, which is going to have some Objective-C files. Then you'll see an Android folder, which generally has some Java files. On my future video list, I have building a capacitor plugin from scratch, which is very similar to Cordova, but that video is probably still a couple months off. The next question comes from Raul on YouTube. I've never used a state management library. Should I learn NgRx or NgXs? But I think a much more important question is, do I need a state management library at all? Because both libraries will add additional overhead and complexity to your application in an effort to make complex state more predictable and easy to test. There's a good saying in the React world that says, you don't need Redux until you know you need Redux. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I have a quick start lesson for both, so test drive them and see which one fits your actual coding style and the preferences of your team. The final question comes from Pierre on Slack, and that's, how do I build an online shop with Angular and Firebase? The beauty of the Angular Firebase stack is that it affords you a ton of flexibility, but at the same time it helps you build things quickly and reliably. Whenever building something involving payments or e-commerce, I recommend leveraging a third-party API because building this from scratch is something that's hard to pull off for most businesses. Stripe Payments, for example, gives you a ton of tools to implement your own e-commerce solution, but there's a bunch of other alternatives that you should compare and contrast, such as Square, Braintree, and a new one called Molten that I haven't actually tried, but does look very interesting. What's really interesting is now that Angular Elements is on the horizon, it opens up the door to use Angular components in platforms like Shopify. So you could use the underlying platform for your e-commerce solution and then add interactivity on top of it with Angular Elements. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. If this video helped you, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment for your chance to win a free t-shirt or gift card. Thanks again for your support, and I can't wait to see what the next 100 videos will bring.